Megan here, starting the series on testosterone, right? So you guys requested it in the segments. Here it is. I'm gonna have an episode based on the many different effects of testosterone on fat loss, muscle building, health, mood, you name it, right? It's one of my most studied hormones. I love it. I've studied it for, extensively simply because it's such an amazing hormone. It's in such a small quantity in the human body, but it produces so many powerful effects. And there's a lot of misinformation about testosterone out there. So let's get to it. Uh, this one is on its effect on fat loss. One of its effect on fat loss. So obviously, I'm hoping you guys already watched the videos on how fat loss works because I'm gonna try to, skip a lot of those details. That's why I make those videos. This way, I could skip them in the upcoming videos and keep the video shorter. So a quick recap, just in case. You have your fat cell here, which is this big circle here, and you have the muscle cell, where fat actually gets broken down. Now, if you remember, this is the fat cell, but fat is stored inside of the fat cells as triglycerides, right? Triglycerides simply means, you have a glycerol backbone and three fatty acid chains attached to it. So most of the fat that we have in our midsection, the fat that we're trying to lose, is really glycerol combined with three fatty acids. When we're losing fat, we simply want to separate those two things, right? Fuck the glycerol, that goes to the liver to get processed. We want the fatty acid part, right, to go into the muscle cell and get burned. That's why more than 80% of your fats get burned when you're at rest. It's inside the muscle cell. So we want those two things to be split apart. Once they're split up, glycerol goes and fucks himself. Fatty acid goes into the muscle cell and gets burned. Simple, right? That's how you lose fat. Short and simple. Now, remember the enzymes of the human body are what speed up processes. Enzymes break stuff up, put stuff together. So, sure enough, you have an enzyme that does this, right? They're the workers. Enzymes cleave, they separate the fatty acids from the glycerol, and then they allow the fatty acids to escape the fat cell and get burned off. And the more you do this, obviously the leaner you get. Now, remember the human body works by processes, and you need a messenger to go knock on the door and say, "Hey, do this," and then the guy goes, "Okay," and then on and on and on. Hormones, I talk about hormones in almost every fucking video. Hormones are everything. Hormones decide whether you're gonna build muscle or lose fat. It's not your calories, it's not the food that you eat, it's the hormones, right? The food that you eat and then your calories, those things are important because they trigger your hormones. But if your hormones are out of whack, it doesn't matter how good your diet is, you're gonna suffer. Now, I explain this in several videos. That's why women and men process nutrients completely differently. You could put them on the same diet, same caloric surplus or deficit, and you're going to get different results. Why? Because women and men have different balances of hormones, especially androgens and estrogens. All right, so this enzyme, hormone sensitive lipase, along with a bunch of other enzymes that help speed this process up, right? Now, what activates this enzyme, right? You have these green fuckers here, right? That's adrenaline, noradrenaline, norepinephrine, depending on what country you're in. But this is simply the most powerful fat burning hormone, right? It's short and simple. Your brain takes the amino acid that you eat, preferably phenylalanine and tyrosine. But your brain converts it into L-dopa. L-dopa becomes dopamine. Dopamine becomes noradrenaline, and noradrenaline becomes adrenaline, right? And this is adrenaline here. So adrenaline, remember, hormones and neurotransmitters have to attach themselves to receptors in order to exercise their effects, right? This is basic stuff. We talked about it a lot, right? You get testosterone, same thing. Every hormone or neurotransmitter in the human body needs to attach to a receptor before it sends its message. Okay? So take this guy here, right? Adrenaline is gonna come in. Let's say you're on a diet, or let's say you exercise and your body wants to burn fat. So your brain, your hypothalamus is gonna send signals, your pituitary gland, blah 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 blah. Your body's gonna produce a whole bunch of shit. But noradrenaline is gonna come in and it's gonna bind to its receptor. Once it binds to its receptor, let me draw something here. Now you have this action going on where it's gonna go ahead. Once again I'm skipping details, but it's gonna activate I believe it's adenylate cyclase, and it's going to turn on CAMP, blah, 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 protein kinase. Long story short, it's going to come here and it's going to activate hormone sensitive lipase, which is the fucker that's going to split those two guys up, right, into this, right? So you need your neurotransmitters or your hormones to bind to the receptors in order for this to happen. Now, that receptor, those receptors here, let me get this. These are called beta receptors, beta adrenergic receptors, simply because adrenaline works by them. Now, the more of these you have, what's going to happen? Because notice, imagine, let's say you only have two, right? So adrenaline is going to come in, and boom, those two are going to bind to the receptors, and then the effect is going to, be pronounced. It's going to go ahead and activate this, blah, blah, blah. But look at the other, molecules of adrenaline and noradrenaline that are still in the bloodstream and can't activate, hormone system cyclase because they can't land anywhere. See, look, there's no spots. All the spots are already taken. So this is why we have certain body parts that are hard to lose fat on because we don't have enough beta receptors on them. Women, the areas of their bodies that don't have a lot of those are the lower body, like thighs and hips, which is why when they exercise, it's very, very, it's like the last place for them to lose fat is in the hips and butts and things like that because those areas don't have a lot of beta receptors. Men, it's in our belly fat, Our midsection doesn't have a lot of beta receptors. That's why it's hard for us to lose fat. So when you say, oh, I just can't lose fat in this region of my body, blah, 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 based on genetics, it really boils down to the amount of beta receptors there, okay? So where does testosterone come in all this? Testosterone, that's right, multiplies the amount of beta receptors you have, whether you're a man or a woman, right? The more testosterone you have, the more of those receptors are going to be on the fat cell, which allows, the rest of these, adrenaline molecules to now have a place to park, right? And what happens? That speeds up, the fat burning process, which is why I keep telling people it's not all about calories. It's not all about what you eat. It's about your hormones because this makes a huge difference. Huge difference. They've done it on men, women, rats. That's why when women see, that's a lot of people say, oh, testosterone doesn't. I made a video and I explained how I think his name was Leon, and I was like, oh, he lost fat without steroids, and everyone was like, what do you mean? Steroids is only for muscle building, and I was like, no, motherfucker, you really underestimate the power of steroids. Testosterone is not just for muscle building. It has a lot of functions in the human body, including fat loss. That's why when women get on the juice, these competitive bodybuilders, when they get on the juice, they get lean as hell, far beyond what the normal female body is capable of doing because testosterone increases the receptors. If you take a rat and you castrate the rat, why do you think the rat puts on weight? Not even just a rat. Take a human body and castrate the motherfucker. What happens? He puts on a lot of fat. As men get older and the testosterone levels drop, what happens? They put on more body fat. When a boy becomes a man and goes through puberty, what happens? His T levels go up, and subsequently he becomes leaner and loses fat. That's why a lot of us were chubby as kids, and as we went through puberty, we started leaning out. Testosterone has very, very powerful effects on fat loss. In fact, if you're a natty motherfucker, testosterone is actually has a more powerful effect on fat loss than muscle building. That's what's very important to increase your T levels, not just for muscle building, not just for motivation and all the other things, but to also speed up fat loss. All right, hope this video helps. Drug it out for a bit too long. If you got any questions, comment below. Stay tuned for the next episode on this series, which is going to explore the other effects of testosterone. All right, guys, Team 3D Alpha, like, comment, share, subscribe. Got any questions, comment below, and it's going to be answered in the next FAQs. I'm out. Other segments. So go in the comment section and just vote. Vote on what you think is your most requested topic. And then obviously the one that has the most likes are the ones that are going to prioritize. In case, let's say